All right, hope everybody's doing good. We are here today with a teacher and percussionist here in Kansas City, Doug Auwarter. How you doing?
Doing great, Rob. It's good to see you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
I've. This is one of the first times that we've really sat down and talked. But I've seen you, many times with Sons of Brazil.
Yeah.
And I really am always insanely impressed with that band.
It is. It's a wonderful band. It's almost like a miracle.
And you told me before we started, 25 years.
More than that. A little bit more than that. We've been going since 1991. So, however that shakes down.
Yeah, wow,
20,
that's
27
great.
years. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
And
Longer than many people's marriages. That's for sure.
but I mean, you guys got and I know I saw you a long time ago when you kind of had more of the five piece with Roger, and then and I know Danny's fantastic, Danny Embry, and then I always forget what's your bass player guy's name?
Greg Whitfield.
Greg Whitfield. Yeah, he's fabulous too,
Yeah.
and you guys are just an awesome.
Everybody is. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the format of the band in its most basic form is a quartet, and that's with Stan Kessler on
And Stan,
trumpet
that's
and
right,
percussion, flugelhorn, Greg Whitfield on bass, Danny Embry on guitar, me on drums. If Danny can't make the gig, then Roger automatically fills in for him. A lot of time we can be a five-piece band, and in that case it'll usually be Roger and Danny both. And then when we can, we add Gary Helm on percussion, who adds another dimension.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah.
It is fun.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a huge sound.
Oh yeah, and so one thing before we get into you kind of how you started, the thing that I'm always obsessed about is I always feel like there's a lot of us that are in this situation out as gigging musicians. We're able to get those like $300 gigs, right? We kind of accidentally throughout the 20 years here in town kind of get a bunch of a bunch of bands, and we kind of get up to a little point and then it quits, and then you get up to your 400 and it quits. And like, what's your like thoughts on like the scene here in Kansas City in general, and getting up to where you guys are at, where you can kind of get up to this spot where you can bring in.
Well, sometimes, that's it. I mean, we have been around for a long time. These people are stellar players. I mean, some of the times they're like $600 to $700 gigs. But what irritates me a bit is that most of the time they're, $100 a piece. And I don't think that's changed for 20 years. It's, that's just what clubs pay in Kansas City. That's what they've gotten used to paying, and it seems like that's the only number they know. So that it seems to me that should be a little better than it is. But the on the other hand, the joy of playing with those people offsets that. And if you're making a living playing music in Kansas City, you probably are not just gigging. You're probably doing some teaching, and if you're lucky, you're doing some university teaching. All of us in that band, except for Greg and Gary, teach at UMKC. So, that helps out a lot.
Sure, yeah, and so I mean. So I guess it's been a couple of things then. Obviously, you guys have been in town for a while, right? You guys have been in town for more than 10 years, 25, whatever years here. So you've had a chance to get to know many musicians, first of all.
Right.
And you've gotten to know a lot of different people in the public, too.
Right.
Right? So, that's kind of where my question is a little bit, is that some of these guys like myself, when I tried to run my rock band when I first got into town, it was really fun because I found, I already knew Brad Williams, absolutely killer drummer. And I'd met some people already into town, and I immediately had, pretty decent jazz players 4 months into town, which is insane. But at the time, I didn't know anybody. You know, I didn't really know where all the bars were at. I didn't, and I didn't. I'd gigged a lot in Wichita, but not really. You know, so I was still like a baby, not
Right.
playing wise, but gigging wise. I was still
Yeah.
very much a baby, and so, like, so that's what's been killing me about this like level of like I was saying, all of us that are easily able to get our band and have any bar throw us the 300-400 if we talk them into it hard enough, you know, but when we get up to the people like Alani McFadden or like with your guys' band where you guys have a following now, it can't just be just the talent, right? I mean, you guys, like I said, I mean, you guys have been in Lonnie's been in town for 50 years,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah.
now he gets like 4 weekly gigs at play. Like, so, I mean, do you have any other thoughts on that about like how all of us can get to that next step? Because it seems like all of us are stuck.
Yeah,
Do
it's
you know,
and
like-
when I was saying $600 and $700, I meant per person.
Right,
not per
right,
gig,
yeah.
you know. But yeah, usually it's 100 per person. The everybody in the group has a lot of skills in various areas. All of us play jazz. Gary Helm plays a lot of world music. The percussionist plays a lot of tremendous world music, and he's a very, very good bassist as well. A great funk bassist, as well as reggae and other forms. So, we do a lot of different kinds of gigs. I play, in terms of the sheer volume of gigs, I play way more straight ahead jazz gigs than I do the Brazilian or Afro-Cuban gigs. Even though the Sons of Brazil is a very regularly performing band, I do more straight ahead jazz gigs, which I love.
Right.
And I love the people I play with, in that music also, and I love the clubs for the most part that I play that music in. So
Yeah, that's cool.
no matter, when I was first starting out, I had no idea how to network. I mean, the word hadn't even been invented yet, or at least pertaining to marketing yourself.
Yes.
I had no idea how to do that. It was really hard for me to get going. So I think that's the challenge is really being savvy about all those ways of getting yourself out there, and it really gets down to playing as much as you can, jamming whatever you can, and somebody hearing you and go, I love the way that guy plays, I'm gonna hire him. And that's what it gets down to. And you gradually develop a network of people that hire you for gigs. Nowadays, I've been gradually trying to trim things back, and I do so much teaching during the day. I just can't be playing till 1 in the morning on a Tuesday night if I've got a 9 a.m. class. So I'm playing, maybe 3 gigs a week now. But there was a time where if I didn't have at least 25 dates on my calendar, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
I've got to pound the bushes.
Yeah, that's great, man. I mean, like, so here's another question. You were talking about playing a lot and networking. So I think all of us get, especially myself, who's still kind of getting into my gigging flow here, is that like when I first got into town, I was a little bit nervous to go out to some of the jams and stuff, but not really. I kind of just was going out there and we'll just see what happens. And then I got over that fear, and then I was not fearful at all. But now here recently, now 9-ish years into town, now I've gotten a different mentality of what I think my standard of excellence should be. And so now I've noticed just to tell everybody, I've started to get nervous again. Especially jazz. Blues, blues stuff. I'll just go out to any of them because I'm not scared of that at all. And so one thing that I've noticed is a lot of the people, and you mentioned UMKC, a lot of these guys that were kind of at UMKC when I got into town, I sort of remember them when they were kind of getting their chops figured out. And then now it's been 8 years later, and the Eddie Moores and the Andrew Ouellettes and some of those guys are absolutely tearing it up right now.
Absolutely tearing it up.
Yeah, and Steve Lambert, Dominique Sanders,
yeah.
I mean, all those guys
All those
are just tearing it up right now. And so, would you say that even if you're scared, like at the time, still go out and play because all of those guys might remember you, and then 4 years later, because we all remember how somebody plays, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how do we do that? How do we all like memorize everybody's like? That just cracks me up.
It's true. You've got to be a good player. I think what Marcus Lewis said, be dope. Well, there's another thing, be nice.
Yeah.
That goes a long way. I mean, nobody wants to work with a jerk.
Yeah.
And fortunately, very, very few the better jazz musicians, at least in the circles that I travel in, there are very few of them are not nice. Most of them are great people, and you not only do you enjoy playing with them, but you enjoy hanging out with them, and it's a blast to go on these gigs. And what a beautiful cruise through an evening these gigs are. But yeah, you've got to get out there, and that's how you get better too. Sometimes getting in a little bit over your head, and it's sometimes a sink or swim situation. Most people can swim. They find out that they can do things that they hadn't given themselves credit for before.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you reach, if you've got the chops to back that up, maybe you don't even know you have those chops. But you can find something to give.
Yeah.
Something to say.
So you would say, you got to know, first of all, when they're dropping like 260 Cherokee on you and you're like, oh crap, this ain't gonna happen right now. But there might be other stuff that
then make sure that you've got that for the next time. One time I was in the Army band in Berlin back in very early 70s, 70 to 72, and I remember sitting in with some guys at the Jazz Gallery, and I didn't play very well. And there was a guy there who later moved back to Kansas City. He was originally from Kansas City, Carmel Jones. And, he was very candid. He said, so, you didn't have it tonight. Make sure you have it next time. Do whatever you need to do. And I did. I did. I wasn't going to go through that again.
Yeah.
So, the next time I came, I brought it.
Yeah.
I was ready to go. So that's, those are learning experiences. You got to do that. Got to go through that.
That's like, I've had that too before with students, where that guy came at you with a certain kind of intensity of comment there, and it sounds like you didn't go shrivel up and die.
Yeah.
You went, all right, and you stepped up and made the failure into a positive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very direct with my students too about those things. I will tell them, especially the ones at UMKC who have career aspirations, and really anybody that has a career aspiration, they see a little different side of me than somebody that wants to come in and improve their snare drum chops in marching band or something. Those people, whatever they want to get out of it is fine. But you start making career noises, and you are not prepared a couple weeks in a row, and I'll say something like, I don't see a future musician here. This is not what a future career musician looks like. So-and-so, that's what a career musician looks like. And he's practicing 3 hours a day.
Wow.
You're not practicing that much a week. So it's not that you're wasting my time, you're wasting your time.
See, I love that. And I had a guy in college, he taught the art of theater class, and he said that so it was just like a regular for all the non-theater people, for them. And he basically told all of us, he's like, man, the theater people that I have come in here, sometimes I tell him, he's like, Broadway's ridiculous. You know, you've got, you know, he was like, to get there, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like you need to do this.
Absolutely.
And he's like, and you know what some people say? They say that's mean, right? They say as a teacher, you're sitting there and telling them, this is not, you know, maybe not even telling them that you're not going to make it, sort of telling them if you don't act up, you're not going to make it, which is maybe a similar message. And, you know, this is a whole different, you know, political argument that you could make on this general idea, but is that mean or is that...
I think it's mean to lead them on.
Ooh.
That's
I totally
mean.
agree.
That's mean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, mean not to give them expectations. I don't play God. I don't tell people what they can't do.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not performing and getting something together where we can see a good end result in a year or two, then it's mean to say otherwise.
Wow. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And it's like tough as a teacher. I mean, we can go to teaching, I guess, now, but like that's what I've been asking every teacher on here is this idea of those kind of moments, and when I have that conversation, if I have that conversation, how I have that, you know, that do I need to do the kick 'em, you know, come to Jesus meaning kick 'em in the butt moment, you know, do you know?
Well, one of the things too, I really try to develop a personal relationship with all my students, regardless of what the outcome, you know, the perceived outcome is supposed to be. What, you know, just casually when they come in, so, you know, what do you do? What hobbies do you have? You know, the high school kids, even the college students, what do you do when you're not doing this? So they know I'm on their side. I'm on their side. I want them to do well. So when I tell them, give them the tough love moment, they know that I'm doing it for them, not out of some kind of ego trip that I'm on, or I get off on demeaning somebody. I don't. I hate that.
Yeah.
And I don't demean people, but I'll tell them, you know, this is not what a career musician looks like.
Wow.
In college,
I mean, that's
practicing 30 minutes a day, maybe. You know, come on.
Right. Yeah. Wow. What are, like, with your teaching? Because you said that you do kind of college age kids, and you have for a while, but you also teach private, right?
Yeah, I love to start kids out when they're like 10 years old, 9 years old even, and oftentimes I graduate those people from high school. I love that. I get them started in a good way, and you know they're learning proper techniques and what I want them to learn, what I think they should know every step along the way. So I have no problem with beginners at all.
So obviously that's going to be a range of ages all the way up to adult then, you know, with college kids.
Yeah.
And like what I keep, and I'm sorry for everybody watching this, because I've been asking every teacher this, because I think it's the thing that all of us have the problem with, so I just want to go right to the problem spot, and is that I have a problem knowing when I need to do that come to Jesus meeting. And you were talking about this kid, and I think you maybe said the key, he's showing career aspirations.
Right.
And that's the problem that I think as a teacher that I'm not understanding is I just want them all to do that. So I do the come to Jesus meeting with everyone, and I don't like
well, there's
read
varying
the student.
degrees. You know, like I just want people to get what they expect to get out of it. And maybe, like I said, they want to be good enough that they can play in the pit orchestra at school, or they want to graduate from bass drum to tenors or snare drum.
Right.
You know, they have no expectations beyond that. When they graduate from high school, they will go to college. They may never play again, or maybe, you know, they want to keep playing as a hobbyist in a rock band or something. Great. You know, that's perfectly good, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But like I said, if they have, making career noises, then I just feel like I need to increase their expectations as to what they need to do.
Yo, yeah. I'm sure you've had this many times. What happens when you have the kid in there because this happens all the time with me, and it kind of cracks me up, because I'll be like, well, what music do you like? And they'll be like, well, I don't know. Well, because they've never listened to music, I mean, they've been in orchestra, like they've been in orchestra for 2 years or something, that cracks me up.
Yeah, yeah. I don't recall that really ever happening. Sometimes, they give an answer that they feel like I want to hear.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, I listen to jazz. Really? Like whom? And that's when it's like, everybody.
Oh, everybody.
Well, like, name one. And then, it'll be something like totally predictable. Like, well, Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington, some name that everybody knows. Mm-hmm. Really?
What song do you like of them?
Which Duke Ellington album or do you especially like?
Oh, well.
It's like, come on, and sometimes I'll go down that road with them up for a couple of minutes and say, listen, you really do need to listen to music. A huge part of this is listening to music. Find something you like. If you want to learn to play jazz, you've got to listen to jazz. Mm-hmm. And same thing about anything else, rock and roll. I mean, listen to that music. Oh, yeah. That's usually not a problem. Usually they are listening to rock. What I usually get is, people that want to expand their horizons a bit. Maybe they're playing rock and they want to learn to play jazz. And the first step is, these are some people you need to listen to, starting now.
Yeah, like yesterday. Yeah.
And I mean, there's so much access to people, YouTube, Spotify, you name it. There is no excuse for not listening to people. So, right away I'll give them some people to listen to as a drummer. Jeff Hamilton, for instance, a marvelous drummer that people usually haven't heard of when they're starting out, and then they go hear him play, and it's like, wow, this is tremendous. How come I never heard of this guy?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, with different drummers specifically, you'll listen to certain people, and you'll see the one guy, because this doesn't happen as much in classical, I think, at least from my experience. We all get kind of trained very similarly, and people have their tendencies, obviously, and stuff they're a little bit better at, but boy, in jazz, like, everybody sounds completely different from each other, and you'll have the guy that, like, is very tight and precise, and his pocket's good, and he's really, like, exactly with the beat, and then you'll see another guy who's, like, sloppy and in the pocket, and then you'll see another guy that has, like, really interesting ideas, but his pocket is kind of, but his solos are like 1,000 times better than this guy, but this guy's regular drum beat's way better than his,
well, that's it.
Yeah.
Study those guys and pick the parts out that you especially like, and start building your own voice.
Oh yeah, and so back to the teaching stuff. Is there any specific thing that you've seen some younger teachers do, or even in the past, like as a young teacher?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm not crazy about, and this is, of course, all these things are my opinions, but the world has been going more and more toward learning songs. And to me, that's a little like teaching to the test in a classroom situation. I have always taught rhythms. In fact, I've written a couple of books, which I actually intended to bring and go, but I didn't.
Plug them.
Well, essential rock for the drum set, and essential Latin styles for the drum set. The two books. So the rock book basically starts out with very basic rock beats, and then shows you how to develop them in complexity, one step at a time. You're just adding 1/16 notes to the snare drum, and then 16th notes to the bass drum, and just building on that. And they'll learn not an entirely new series of beats every week, but pretty orderly. Within 3 weeks or so, they're on to something completely different. And I just found that they learn so much faster that way. My philosophy is learn these rhythms, learn what they sound like. Let's then pick them out. Let's listen to a song, and you tell me what that drummer is playing. And then you learn whatever songs you want to learn, but you don't have to learn them. You just are playing them. And I've seen how much quicker they learn this way rather than picking a song and then working on that song for a month. My God, they learn one song in a month? How about one song in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
That's in my opinion, that's what should be happening. But I see the other way more and more creeping in. I think that maybe my way is a little bit more of a gradual learning curve, and it's not quite the instant gratification. You're not maybe learning this Weezer song, but when you learn this first series of beats, it's like boom boom bap boom boom bap boom bap boom boom bap boom 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 bap boom boom. That's my Sharona.
Right.
Or doom doom bap doom doom bap. You've just learned a Weezer tune.
Right.
So that's the way I do it. I think it's just a much more effective way to go about it.
I totally know what you mean, because it seems like to me, and this is probably unfair to like the blues jams or blues bands, but like whenever I go to a jam, I mean it's slow funk shuffle. There's not a fourth. There's rock tunes, but that would be maybe what you're kind of explaining, is that don't go learn a song, learn how to do a shuffle.
Yeah,
learn how
and
to
for
do
sure
a couple
you need to
versions.
learn tunes. If somebody
Right.
calls a tune, you need to know what that tune sounds like. I
Right.
I don't mean to imply that you shouldn't have a catalog of tunes that you
Right.
know.
But you're talking about learning a style, sort of, and what I think's funny about the shuffle thing is if you learn how to play a shuffle, you got 800 tunes immediately.
Exactly.
Right? I mean,
and then listen to a bunch of them and see how what fits in.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you add then now you've got the framework, right? And then now you're just learning where the hits are, or the stops or whatever in the
exactly.
I mean,
The form.
And so my question on that in regards to teaching is that I like to do that too, and we have tons of. I'm sure you guys have all sorts of little, the paradiddles and all this, individual stuff. For us, it's shifting, vibrato. Like there's all these little stupid things that you learn. And I want to teach that way too. I want to teach techniques, right? Is sort of what you're talking about. I have a problem though, because you're fighting. Kid wants songs, you want technique, and then so is the key that you have to like make them buy into that. Is that the key, right?
That's one of the great things about having kids that start with you when they're 9 or 10 years old. You've got their trust. And so when you tell them, okay, I want you to do this, they just do it. And if they say, can we learn tunes at some point? Yeah, bring it in. Let's listen to it. By all means.
Yeah, and I don't know, with rock, I've noticed too that it's funny because I've done so many of these blues jams that you kind of have your, as a drummer, I would guess there's probably way more to it, and I'm being mean here, but like, you kind of do your shuffle, but there's not really many hits. At least at the jams, they just kind of do their shuffle and funk all the way through slow. But with rock, there's like hits, dun 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 dun, and then you go on to the chorus, go on to the end. So like in that way, I would think like rock would be a lot harder than blues. In that, I mean, would you agree with that, or?
I think generally, it probably is.
Like the memorization part, I guess, is remembering every single song, because there's songs that are pretty different, but boy, it seems like at the jams anyways, well, you got your 40 shuffles that all, it's kind of all the same song, like you were saying, and you learn your shuffle and now you have 40 songs,
Yeah, I just like for them to, I'm a pretty Catholic teacher, meaning I'm pretty. I don't do a lot of avant-garde techniques or any bizarre stuff. I mean, we start out on snare drum and they learn how to read. And I've also had the luxury of being pretty, fairly adamant in a way about what I do. I don't accept students until they've had fractions. Some people, will teach kids that are 5 years old, and that's great. If they get good results, that's wonderful. But that's not the way I do it. I want them to be reading music, and they can't really understand the divisions of notes that you divide a whole note in half, and you get a half note and a half note and a half. You get a quarter note, and this is how this works. If they don't have some very basic arithmetic knowledge. So, for that reason, I seldom, if ever, start a student before they're 9.
Yeah, that's interesting. My mom taught special ed 24 years, and she talks about that kind of idea all the time, and I'm pretty obsessed with that. About they can't get the song, and we're sight reading. Well, you can tell that it's kind of a rhythm thing. They sort of know where all the notes are, but it's a rhythm. So you're like, okay, rhythm. But I'm like, okay, so play me this, and they're like, oh, it's pretty obvious that they are not counting. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we got to go back to count. Like, there's all these stages before the stage.
I make them count out loud.
Yeah. But then I'm like, they can't read this. Oh, they don't even know that that's called a quarter note.
Right.
Oh, now we got to go back to quarter note day.
Yeah.
And then you just mentioned something else with the fraction thing. Well, they don't understand fractions, so that's why they're not in. So like, that's just blowing my mind, because that's one of those stages
starting
before the
them
stage.
from the start.
Yeah.
I can go with something that I know works. It's worked literally hundreds of times in the past.
Yeah.
And from here's how you hold your sticks to here's how you make proper strokes, and then here's how we start to learn to read music, which happens within the first 2 weeks of instruction. We start reading our first basic rhythms at the second week, unless they haven't practiced the first week. And then I said, well, I'm sorry you haven't worked on this, but you're going to have to before we can go on. So this week you need to practice, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. Do you teach them to come up to here?
No, I teach them full strokes. I do.
Joking.
But yeah, no, I don't.
Those drummers that are.
Yeah, no.
And I watch my buddy Brad. He's doing. His stick is.
Right. Right.
High level technique and so
I don't really get into too much of that nuanced playing. They kind of gravitate to that on their own. Some of my people are like that. The kind of everything is pretty low and close and meticulous.
Tight, yeah.
Other people, are bigger. I mean, bigger strokes, and that's just how they work. Now, if they're pounding, we have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But just playing in a more robust way, or a more what's the word? Not restricted, but just a more closed down way. People kind of just do that through their DNA or something. I don't know.
And watching you probably too.
Yeah.
Right, they're osmosising a little bit, because we all watch our teachers.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that with my left hand recently, and I've kind of remembered the exact curvature of his fingers, and then I'll look at my hand, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that looking like this teacher and not this teacher,
Well, rock drummers that come in and they didn't start with me at the beginning, and they come in, they've been playing for a few years, and they want to learn to play jazz. And so that's something when I do have to teach them to use a different technique and make a different sound.
Yeah. Because
jazz is very much off the cymbals, off the drums, and not into the drums like rock is. Rock, you want those tom-toms to explode. Jazz, you don't want that to explode.
Yeah. Wow, I've never thought about that.
You want a beautiful singing sound off of everything.
Yeah.
And the drums are tuned tighter, and it's just a completely different sound Just like speaking a foreign language, you may use your same voice, mas quando eu falo português é som diferente. When I speak Portuguese, it's a different sound.
Wow. Yeah. That was impressive just now.
Well,
Different language.
one of those things
Oh, yeah.
I've absorbed along the way.
Yeah. So with all of your Latin stuff that I know you've done a lot, one thing that I've learned in the last bunch of years now that I've started to kind of play a little bit of this stuff is I didn't even know that all of these different beats actually came from different countries.
Yeah.
Like can you talk about that?
Boy,
a little bit?
that's a very Midwestern thing.
Yeah.
I find that in places like New York, people where there are large Cuban populations, large Brazilian populations, people seem to understand that more than they do here where there are not. That whole concept of Latin music,
It's all one
we
thing,
embrace.
yeah.
It's all one big thing.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I have to do in teaching people how to do that. Okay, so these are Cuban styles, these are Brazilian styles, and then when we do those, we'll talk about some other ones too. The merengue from the Dominican Republic, the cumbia.
Yeah, so
from
go
Colombia.
through a couple of them. So merengue is Dominican Republic. So
Mambo, cha-cha-cha, songo, bembe, that's from Cuba. Samba, bossa nova, baião, partido alto, those are from Brazil. And they're very, very, very different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And then like Argentina is tango. Right? Yeah, tango. Yeah. So and that's what killed me because I would hear. At the time, I would hear some kind of Afro-Cuban kind of stuff, and I didn't really know what I was listening to. I could easily tell it was Latin music, but I didn't really start hearing the differences. But now I can pick out bossa nova pretty easy when I hear it.
The instruments that they're used are different. The sounds are, everything is different, really.
Yeah.
Cuba is all about hand drums. Brazilian music, just completely different drums, mostly. Some hand drums, but just different shakers and different. It's just everything. The timbre is different. Texture is completely different.
One thing that was killing me was Pancho Sanchez. I know his band's sort of famous. I have a couple albums of his down there, and they've got 3 percussionists in their band.
Right.
The leader is the conga player, or whatever those
Right.
things are called. So that was killing me, and that I've been telling my students, I'm like, what does that tell you? That the leader of the band is the drummer. What does that tell you? And their answer is the right answer usually, that they think rhythm is a very, very, very important.
Yeah.
In that kind of music.
Yes.
But then you go over to a different music, like maybe classical in general. I would say the harmony, in general, takes huge precedent over.
Right.
Yeah. So I just think that that's so cool so what would be your advice, like you were talking about the rock guy wanting to do jazz, what would you say you would tell kind of a normal student that hears there may be, let's say they're a regular kid and they like American rock, but they hear this stuff, like a big drum circle of guys, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. What would be the first couple things you would start telling them?
So, it would be completely dependent on what they had heard.
Yeah.
Drum circle. You're going to be talking about usually conga drums and djembes. So we're talking right away. We're talking about African music generally,
Right.
And Cuban rumba. So, getting them going on some fundamental aspects of that. If that's what they're doing, then I'll probably get them with some African drumming first, and then maybe the Cuban stuff after that.
Right.
And just learning concepts of clave and from Cuba, and the rhythms that how the rhythms correspond to that. It's fairly involved, but if you do anything in the proper sequence, it's not overwhelming. It's when you stand back and look at this huge, complicated building that you go,
Right.
you know, as they say in Brazil, it's like a donkey looking at a cathedral. It's a great expression.
Oh yeah, that's a great, yeah.
You know, and
That's funny.
sometimes, you know, looking at a fully developed musical style is like that. But when you start with the pieces that make up the components that grow into the other aspects of it, you know, it's not really that complicated.
Right. So if they don't have if they don't have a djembe or any of those things, would you start them on that kind of stuff on the trap set?
No,
or would you?
they're not. No,
Yeah.
no, not unless.
Or just
I
on
mean,
a
if they
snare
want
or
to learn,
something?
if they want to learn how to play, you know, the trap set rhythms that go along with that, I
Right.
do. But if they really set on a hand drum derived style, then I'll start them on that. And if they want to continue, I will probably even send them to somebody that specializes in that more than I do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's definitely a couple guys in Kansas City
Oh,
that
absolutely.
are killer at that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I know the thing that was killing me when I started to get into this jazzy kind of stuff is that for me playing so many march style kind of beats, and I consider it kind of more straight style beats. And the swing stuff wasn't hard, but it was definitely easy. The Latin, the like bossa nova stuff was actually easier for me than the swing stuff. And I would think that kind of stuff is the bossa nova samba kind of stuff is a lot more syncopated, I think, in my opinion, than some of the swing. But it's like, to me, it feels more straight. And that's
Yeah.
why that's the only explanation that I could figure out why that was easier than the swing.
It's just there's just different aspects to that, you know. It's just there are things about each of them that are more complex than the other. Swing can be difficult because in order to properly do it, it's constantly changing. I liken it to a river, you know, that is always the same but always different. So, you know, a swing, you know, a straight ahead jazz, you know, you've got like a ride cymbal pattern, and then you have a dialogue between the snare drum and bass drum and hi-hat sometimes that is shifting. And in bossa nova, you don't really shift things as much. You know, it's just different, you know,
Yeah,
there's different
sure.
aspects to it. And it
Yeah.
depends, you know, on what level you aspire to on all of that stuff.
Oh yeah. How much work you're willing to do and how far you're.
Well, I always tell people to approach it as a foreign language. I mean, don't try to bring the rock stuff you know into this. You know, don't do that. This is different. When I first studied Portuguese in 1989 or so, one of the first things I had to do was stop translating English into Spanish because I already had some Spanish, and then translate that into Portuguese.
So now you're dealing with three, right, instead of just.
Yes, you know, so I had to lose my Spanish. You know, now I found later that I hadn't lost it completely, but I had more or less tabled it and put it out of my mind for the time being. You know, let's get this going with Portuguese, and that's what people need to do when they're learning a style. You know, learn that style.
Yeah.
Don't try to bring your rock stuff into samba.
Yeah.
Because that's just going to get you in trouble. You're
Sure.
going to sound like a tourist a lot longer than you would like.
That's pretty funny because I was just talking to my grandpa about me sounding like a tourist playing country. You know, like I'm a fraud. You know, like playing country. I mean, enough to the audience. The audience thinks it's fine, but I know, you know.
Oh, I know.
Sometimes
I listen to a singer, you know, who wants to sing in Portuguese, and you know, it's a very valid endeavor, but a lot of times they don't take seriously how difficult it is to do that. So they do a poor job.
Right.
And somebody in the audience says, "Gosh, you know, that person just sings so beautifully in Portuguese," and I'm thinking, and you would know that how?
Yeah. What word is that? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It sounds exotic to you, and
Right.
okay, it worked. but actually it was awful.
Right. Yeah, there's a fake it till you make it kind of a thing that is tough.
Yeah.
You know, when you get into, you know, I'm not on your level, but I know that, you know, when you study enough, when you literally start learning like Portuguese, you know, and understanding like what these guys are really saying in this song, or going down to Brazil and like studying for real, we all know that you got to do the fake it till you make it, but it's tough to buy into that.
I did.
In a weird, so it's not authentic. You know?
I played some of the most gringo samba that I thought was so badass, you know, and it was not. Unfortunately, I learned better before I went to Brazil for the first time. Mm-hmm. I had a really great story. The very first time I was in Brazil, before that, okay, so my tourist samba, you know, it's just like these kind of linear hand patterns over this doom da doom da doom da doom bass drum. It had nothing to do with samba.
Yeah.
Did it sound cool? In a certain way it did, but it wasn't samba. So Brazilian recordings were very hard to come by in Kansas City. We're talking late 80s here.
Yeah.
Very difficult to come by. But this starts to change, and there was a solo album by José Roberto Bertrami, a great keyboardist. It had a drummer named Robertinho Silva on it. This was unbelievable. It just made me want to dance all the time I heard it. So, you know, I said, okay, I'm going to play along. And I tried to play along, and it sounded horrible. What am I rushing? Am I dragging? What's going on here? No, I'm right. Oh, what is this? Mm-hmm. So finally, out of frustration, you know, it's like, okay, you have got rhythmic skills. You can transcribe this, and you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Tough talk to myself. So I did. Mm-hmm. You know, I wrote out about 32 bars, and it's like, oh, I see a pattern here, none of which that I was playing.
Sure, yeah.
So I absorbed that, you know, and shed that for a bit, for a week or so, and then sit down and try to play along, and it works.
Yeah.
It works. Okay, so I've broken the code. So, you know, a couple of years go by, and, you know, I'm playing that with greater efficacy or whatever, and finally it's time for me to make my first trip to Brazil. So I've studied Portuguese for about a year and a half, and I go. So I arrive in Rio, and it's amazing. The music is just oozing out of the cracks on the sidewalks. I'm looking in the paper, and all my idols are playing everywhere, and I'm kind of freaking out at first, and then I figure out, okay, this is not like Kansas City. They're not going to do just one show. They're playing in a club for several days, or a showroom,
right?
It was more likely. So one night, I go to see one of my idols, this drummer that I mentioned, Robertinho Silva. He'd played with Wayne Shorter, and he was Milton Nascimento's drummer, tremendous guy. So I go and see him play, and he walks in, and for whatever reason, I guess just the enormity of the undertaking of getting to Brazil, I'm kind of more unabashed there than I am here. I'm more likely to go up and introduce myself and talk to somebody. I don't do that stuff here. Jackie Jeanette comes and plays in a club. I sit there and I go, that's amazing, and goodbye. There, you know, so anyway, I see him come in the club, and I introduce myself and tell him, you know, what a big fan I am, and I have him on this recording and this recording, and he says, oh, well, you said you're a musician. What do you play? Oh, this is in Portuguese, and my tortured Portuguese. And I said, well, I play drums, like you. And he said, well, then you must play tonight. What? No, well, that was my mental knee-jerk, but then I realized, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen? If you are so nervous and just out of your element that you can't play a note, you'll walk out of here and you'll never see these people again. If you don't do this,
you'll regret
it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So yes, I will play tonight.
Yeah.
So he plays a set, and then he brings me up, and these musicians, I've learned as we go that they were like the A-list session, the wrecking crew of Brazil. Each of them been on, scores of recordings.
Wow.
So it turns out they're intrigued with the idea of playing a jazz tune or a couple of jazz tunes with an American drummer.
Yeah, sure.
So great. So we play a couple of tunes. They said, well, Robertino's upstairs having a drink with a lady, and we need to play a samba. Can you play a samba? And it's like, please play a samba.
Yeah.
It's the answer to my every prayer.
Right.
So away we go. And then there was another one. Another person has come to sit in, a singer, and he wants to do a tune by Javan that has some field changes in it.
Okay,
Where it shifts from samba to like Partido Alto and back, and they're going, no, that's too complicated, the drummer, and I'm going, I know the song.
Yeah.
And the pianist looks at the bass and says, "Ooh, gringo sabe," and they laugh, and I'm, yeah, whatever. So off we go, and it's smoking.
Yeah.
I can't believe how good it's sounding with these guys kind of propping me up, and I'm making all the changes, and kind of got my eyes closed. I'm into it, and I look over, and the pianist and the bassist are laughing.
Mm.
What's up with that? This is sounding killer, and they see that I'm looking at it, and they laugh and give me the thumbs up, and after the tune, they said, we just can't believe that a tourist fell in off the street and knows the tunes and all the changes, and so I'm going, well, thanks, I'm having a great time, but time to relinquish the chair, which proper gig etiquette, as we had mentioned, we play a couple tunes and you're off. And so I said, oh, no, Robertino's still upstairs, keep playing. So after we finish each tune, I'm going, okay, I'm done. No. And then finally I said, what's the matter with you? We're having fun. Aren't you having fun? I said, yeah, but from where I come from, this is very poor etiquette. And I said, look, Robertino has this gig every Tuesday night, and, he'll play again next Tuesday night. People sit in. And let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I play the rest of the night, and which was only another maybe 40 minutes after that point. Afterwards, I'm just walking on air. I can't believe this has happened.
Yeah, wow.
And so I exchanged phone numbers with some of these people, famous musicians. Mauro Senisi's playing saxophone, Luizão Maia, anyway, just a who's who of Brazilian recording guys, and I go home, and I can't sleep, it's amazing. I'm drinking cachaça, looking at the ocean, all of this. This will never happen again. Well, in a couple of days, the pianist called me, and Dougie, we're playing at a jazz club almost across the street from your hotel. Can you come and play some tunes with us Sunday evening? Oh, yes! So I go and again. So I played, and then I played again. They asked me to come and play the next Tuesday, and so these friendships that I made have endured to now. And and I still go sit in with them. When I was single, I would actually gig. I would be in touch a couple of months beforehand. Any time that Pasquale or whoever is playing can't make it,
That's awesome, man.
So I did. I would usually gig once or twice if I was there for 2 or 3 weeks. I would wind up playing a gig and having a great time.
That's cool. Like I've always been curious how I would stack up in another town, like in a Memphis open blues jam.
Right.
Just going down there to see what that would be like.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be really similar to what we have here, and to see quality musician wise, if I'd be able to just kind of go in there and hang with whatever they're doing, that'd be really fun. And this is what you just described as the extreme version
validation, the supreme validation of everything. And I've been back probably a dozen times or so, and I always sit in, and I've always just been embraced by those wonderful people, and They're my brothers.
Oh yeah, and Matt Hopper was talking about something. This was maybe even 2 years ago when he went down to Brazil, or he went somewhere down in South America.
Yeah, he went to Brazil.
Yeah,
Porto Alegre, a city a good ways to the south of Rio.
Oh yeah, okay. And he was talking about he got to go play with some people, and he said it was hilarious because like he was down there to play their bossa nova and whatever, and they're like, oh no, we're playing swing, we
Right.
want to play, and it was just funny how the respect there was. He said it was insane. He's like, they were like, no, we don't want to play that. We want to play swing.
Well, that was my entree. It was playing a couple of bop tunes.
Right. Yeah, that's funny.
These guys.
He was saying that he's like, because he finally he was like, I finally talked him into playing some of their stuff so I can play with them, and they're all like, okay, fine, and he's like, it was a freaking cloud, like he couldn't even handle it,
Yeah.
I mean, they were just gliding, and it was like the most insane rhythm he's ever played with before, and then they went over to the swing, and it wasn't bad, these were killer players,
Right.
but it obviously didn't sound like the bossa, and I'm sure his, someone like a Matt playing medium swing is like kind of our stuff, kind of a Kansas City sound, and I'm sure, he sounded like gliding, to them on that, but that was so cool how the just mutual respect sounded genuine, when he was telling us the story. That was so cool that they wanted to play his stuff and he wanted to play,
Well, it's interesting that this pianist that I sat in for the first time, and that I've had this enduring relationship with, enduring friendship with over all these years. He's very good at playing jazz, and what his gig is basically about 40% American jazz and 60% Brazilian.
Yeah, that's cool.
Jazz. So it's perfect, it's perfect, and we're really happy playing together. It's perfect for each of us.
Oh yeah, that's cool, man. So in general, we're probably close to wrapping up here. Just any other kind of advice for maybe the 20-year-old giggers, like the college kids that you probably deal with quite a bit. Any other advice for anybody like that that's trying to get to this kind of next level?
I guess I think one of the most important things is learning styles. Don't just stick to one thing. It's great if you can swing your butt off. That's awesome, but get really good at some other things to separate you from the other amazing swing players. I have a student, a former student, I'll name drop, John Kazillermoot, who I've been so happy to see him just take this city by storm. But he's like that. I mean, there is just seemingly nothing that he can't do. And, a lot of that stuff is stuff that he learned from me. I'm not being self-aggrandizing here, because he mastered it.
Yeah.
He didn't just noodle around with it. He totally had it. So when people hear him play a samba or an Afro-Cuban thing, it's just different if you really know how to do it. That was my entree to kind of separate myself from the pack, because the Kansas City is dripping and with great jazz drummers. I mean, it's always been that way.
Good ones.
It's always been that way. So I just happened that a singer, when they would call a bossa nova, it's like, wow, I don't know what it is, but it's just different with this guy, and I like it. And he's just moved up my list about 6 notches, or Joe Cartwright, that I worked with a ton, and still from time to time, but he had some Afro-Cuban style things that he would do, and when I would play that, it wouldn't be some kind of Afro-Cubanish feel filtered through jazz. It would be, okay, we're doing it for real here.
Yeah.
And for him, I kind of feel like I'm in Havana or something, and I just think that those things make a huge difference. Somebody says, well, I've written this tune and I think it might have kind of a reggae feel. Okay, well, you can kind of go da da dum ga ga da ga, or you can go zuka ba da dum ga 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 dum ga ga dum, and really bring it. And it's like, Yeah.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I would recommend, to the young guys. Get deep with stuff. Get deep, be deep.
Yeah, I know. This is off of the Ken Burns thing, but Wynton Marsalis was talking about the roux and the gumbo, and I think you mentioned that a couple minutes ago. With, well, you might have a killing soup, but you're not really playing bossa nova, like you're
right.
Oh, when you said you were transposing that,
Transcribing it.
yeah, and it wasn't. It was a bastard version of.
A bastard
whatever,
removed 3 times.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It was terrible.
And that's something that. And then your other comment about know a lot of different styles, I think that is really bad in the fiddle realm, because they're either fiddle or classical violin players. There isn't a third. I mean, there's like 6. For us, that's what's frustrating for me, is because I don't have any like idols, fiddle wise, like doing rock and doing like Pink Floyd style, jam bandy stuff. There's like 5 ever,
right?
That are big names. Dave Matthews, Kansas. I mean, name 10 others. There isn't, So like, and so that's one thing that I've liked, and one of the reasons why I can even do the show and talk with a lot of random other people about stuff is because I like to really spread myself out, and I think sometimes that's really great for me, because I can, to toot my own horn, I can run down to Blue Room and I have a couple tunes I can call and get up with those guys, sit in with Brian Ruskin, and then go over to Blues Jam, and then country guy comes over, you're cheating hard, okay, and, but in classical quartet gig and go sight read a little bit of that. But I think the thing that frustrates me is that I think I've almost gone too far into too many things. So now I don't sound like a Steve Lambert on anything. It's like I'm.
Well, it's an important thing, when I teach.
I'm competent with a lot of stuff, but I'm not. Any of you guys that are really specialized in anything, I'm not. I don't sound like that in anything, but I can go like sit in with pretty much everything, which is really fun for me. I mean, it's a. So I don't know. I mean, because you're talking about dive in, right? I mean, you're talking about get your different styles, but you're like do it for real and dive in.
Yeah. So you even if you're playing a country gig, it's like, okay, this has got a Floyd Kramer piano thing happening in it. Okay, I know what DJ Fontana played on that, and so I'm gonna play like that. That's what I'm gonna bring to this, and people go, "Wow, that sounds right. Doesn't sound like a jazz drummer playing country."
Yeah.
So that's these things are important. Be deep.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Last thing, you were talking before we started about kind of a gig scenario. Was that the other one you were talking about?
Oh yeah, no, I just
thing?
said one of the things that, I mean, I've had some funny gigs. One time I had a guy I was sitting in with a country band even, quite a few years ago, 40 some years ago, and this guy kept reading the license plate of a truck that was blocking somebody, and you've got somebody blocked. Okay, police have been called. Okay, the tow truck is here with the person with the license plate, red Ford F-150.
Yeah.
Oh shit, that's my truck. Put his face down and ran out the door.
Oh,
I mean,
funny.
he must have read it 5 times before he
Right.
realized it was his truck.
Oh, that's funny.
Now, the one scenario that cracks me up though is the drunk that turns on you. So this guy is kind of a fan. He goes, you guys are so good. You're so good. I can't believe how good you are. You know what? You're too good. You're too good to be playing in this place.
You should be in.
What's the matter with you? Don't you have any drive? If I had your God-given talent, I would be, and it starts to get ugly, and it's like, get this guy away from me. But I've had that happen several times, where it just starts out very, very benign and how great you are, and then it goes wrong. The drunk that turns on you.
Dude, that's funny, man. Yeah, I've had, other times when people have come up and said, "Why are you here in Kansas City?" And I'm like, "Well, you don't understand anything. You don't know what you're talking about, and like, you don't understand the music scene, and like."
Oh, there was one thing where we were playing. It was a Sons of Brazil gig. This is a good one, and this guy kept wanting us to play a blues. Mm-hmm. Well, it was it was the Sons of Brazil gig. Mm-hmm. And that's straight up. And he goes up and he says, "Come on, can't you just play one blues for me?" I said, "Well, if we could play blues, do you think we'd be bothering with this other crap?" Good point. Of course, the other guys in the band are howling.
Right, yeah, that's funny, man. And that's something interesting with what you guys do, where you guys are doing a mildly specialized thing in Sons of Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
You're not playing everything under the sun. You have kind of a thing that you do, and that always happens a lot when you have this. Like, this happens a lot with me, where as a violin player, I'm like trying to get up there and play like Allman Brothers on a violin.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of cool, and really unique. And then, but they, all they want is this other stuff, and you're just like, man, you suck, dude. Screw you. It's like, and it may be, because you can look at that another way. It's you could read into him that, I don't like what you're doing. I'd rather you did this. Yeah. Or I love what you guys are doing, but I'd also like to hear, those are two different things.
Yeah.
But you take it as, I'm not doing good enough for you, and you need, and the same thing with the Devil Went Down to Georgia crap with me, right? It's like, dude, I'm playing like Pink Floyd violin. Like, you're never going to hear this again. Yeah. I'll bet you a lot of money you're never going to hear this again. And they're like, you play Devil Went Down, I'm just like, motherfucker,
Yeah,
like,
people, they attach a certain value to their musical tastes. It's not, they're not quite enlightened enough okay, this music is what speaks to me. It's not necessarily better than anything. It's just what speaks to me. No, it's like, I like this, therefore it's good. I don't like that, therefore it's bad. Mm-hmm. And so what I like the most is therefore the best.
Right.
The best music is what I like the most. That's which you can't deal with that.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, what are you gonna say?
Yeah, and that happens probably a ton with people wanting to, yelling out the Sweet Home Alabama even at your jazz gig, or wanting some pop tunes instead of this actual, ethnic music that's actually interesting and
Most of the time, people more or less have some idea of what we're going to be talking about. With the name, I often tell people we're the Sons of Brazil, and that goes a long way toward explaining the music we play.
Sure, yeah. So, the band name, yeah.
Yeah.
I would think that, I thought about this too, with the idea of like playing covers or not playing covers or whatever, and like, this is my opinion, but I think in the rock realm, it's definitely very much about songs. They want to hear their regular. I'm talking about just regular fans. They want to hear their, Piano Man, or they want to hear these actual really
something
specific
that they're comfortable
songs.
with.
Yeah, but over in the blues area and then the jazz area too, I don't get the impression that everybody that goes to Green Lady has any freaking clue what the names of these songs are.
Probably.
I don't think any of them do, but they want to come in this bar because they want to hear that sound. Mm-hmm. And maybe with you guys, maybe they've heard Girl from Ipanema or, a handful of them, but they don't know the other names of your songs.
Absolutely.
I mean, but they definitely want to hear some Latin-y sound coming out of a band, that it's good. Yeah. And so like that's their... I wonder if that's their comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's the rock comfortable, and that's the comfortable part, is that they don't... Blues is the same way. You can write all sorts of originals in town as long as it's 12-bar, and then everybody's cool with it. Yeah. Because it sounds like all the rest of them, It's so I don't know if you agree with that, if the jazz crowd is less caring about the specific song, but they want to hear the sound.
I think that's true to an extent. There are always the posers, that come in, and it's not only important to just come into the club, but you have to request a tune. Mm. So, this was always funny when I'd be playing at a place like the Phoenix. It has a lot of tourists that would come in, and they would go satin doll and put $1 in the tip jar, and usually their trophy date would already have been rolling her eyes for an hour before that happened, even, and you get those people.
You're right. That's funny.
They request the only title that they know. They're not even sure what it sounds like. They just know
right.
what the name of the tune is. So
it's signaling.
It happens.
They're trying to signal.
I know Satin Doll.
Yeah, that's funny.
Which of course signals anything but,
Right. What is? Oh, yuppies. Yeah, that's the word. I was trying to think of the word. Coming down, and I'm in this cool jazz club, and I'm here to experience culture and all that.
Right.
That cracks me up. But yeah, man, I don't know. We could probably do this for hours. But yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah. But yeah, man. Well, but anyway, I know that a lot of people, a lot of people know you and Sons of Brazil, and definitely from the community. But thanks for playing, all these years, and I know everybody's enjoyed that.
Well, believe me, it's been my pleasure.
Oh yeah,
my privilege. Yeah.
That's cool, man, and definitely I look up to a lot of you guys that I kind of look at the scene in town as there's about probably more, but this town is just freaking loaded with really good players, and there's a lot of trash here too. There's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, but there's a handful of 50 or more of guys like yourself that are very accomplished and are very good, and then you've got the whole kind of UMKC guys that are insanely good too. They're on kind of next tier, and then there's another whole tier of guys that are plenty good enough to play a gig, and it's just insane how many good players there
I
are.
love playing with my former students at UMKC. I love that. Mm-hmm. And especially when they call me for a gig,
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. Is that because you saw them possibly even 10 years earlier or more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had a relationship with them for.
Yeah.
That's gotta feel great, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. People like Ben Leifer, Andrew Ouellette, the people you mentioned,
Sure.
Steve Lambert, all those guys you mentioned. Really fun for them to consider me, a peer, which I am.
That's cool.
They've totally shown that they've got everything it takes and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's got to be really, really neat. I hope I get that opportunity at some point, because I haven't been teaching that long. So none of the people I've taught are 30 yet.
Well, there's guys, there are even guys that have not even graduated yet. That are starting to work and do a very credible job. Mm-hmm. It's fun to see them coming along.
Yeah, that's really neat, man. Alrighty, this is Doug Auwarter. Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you for inviting me, Rob.
Yeah, no
it's
problem.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, man. So come see Sons of Brazil, and say your two books again.
Essential Latin Styles for the Drum Set and Essential Rock for the Drum Set. Available at dougauwarter.com. I have a Facebook presence. The books have a Facebook presence as well as a YouTube channel. Yeah, you can see me demonstrate this stuff on YouTube, actually.
Yeah, go search
YouTube.
for that. Yeah, that's cool that you're
YouTube
doing
channel.
some kind of demo videos and that stuff.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea. There you go. Get out of here.
All right.
We'll see you
Go
later.
home.
Yeah.